Fishing's an art. Fishing's hunting. Fishing is mentally and physically draining.
What are some, crazy moments that you've had?
As I take off and I get out in the middle of Mobile Bay, I realize that the fog bank is a giant fog bank out in the middle of Mobile Bay. So the fog sets in and I'm driving my boat through there and I can't see. And I've got my amateur partner next to me and he's looking out and he starts screaming right at the last second. He's, he hits me and I'm looking, of course. And all I see is this giant wall in front of me. And I don't know what it is, but I see water splashing and I don't know, but a reaction is just turn to the right. And so as I turn to the right, I'm going down the side of what then I realize is a ship. And so I'm turning to the right, trying to get away from this ship. And then the guy starts yelling again and I see the same thing again, repeated, where there's a wall and water shooting everywhere. And now I just naturally turn to the left because that was just kind of my natural reaction. And what I realized is two ships were passing.
Wow.
Like this. And I drove in between them.
All right, Scott Martin, we're going to get into a whole fishing family, but this guy is the guy, as I look right now, looks like he's got a lot of filming equipment too, so is that filming equipment behind you?
I have a production company as well. So we have a lot of gear around this place here.
I guess so, so I'm going to segue into that later. Let's go back to the beginning because we always try to figure out how this guy get to do what he does. So let's go back. Did you grow up in a fishing family? Was it just like, we're one of those kids say, I want to do this for a living, and everybody's like, that's not going to happen. I mean, how did you?
Fishing's an art. Start? Fishing's hunting. Fishing is. I grew up in it. Both my parents fished quite a bit. Professionally, of course, and I just kind of followed in the footsteps of my father and my mother, believe it or not. So it's it all started. This whole sport of bass fishing kind of started with him. And here I am today. So I've been fishing since I was the story goes, I think I caught my first 8-pounder at 2 years old in diapers, but of course I don't remember that,
wow.
That's
incredible because later on we're going to talk about your daughter is like a fisherman, is that a proper term? Fisherman? What do you say?
No, hung up on it too. Yeah. I think it's, it's like saying male man, male woman. I don't know. It's just, it's a fisherman. I get it.
In the parlance of our times, I try to, make sure I say the right things. So, all right. So then now were you one of those guys that like, you knew that's what you wanted to do, go on the family business, and then you excelled early?
I knew I was going to be in the fishing industry it's in some capacity, whether it was, through our marina, which we have a marina resort here in Florida, on the business side of things, running that, or, I did fishing guide for about 7 or 8 years. I was a fishing guide early on. And so I knew I was going to be in the fishing industry, and the tournament world was a little, I knew I was going to do it at some point, and I was dabbling a little bit into the tournaments, and I decided to fish as an amateur in the, what's it called, a co-angler back in 1999 on Lake Okeechobee here. And I came in second in the tournament, and they said, well, if you could fish the whole rest of the season as a co-angler, which is an amateur, and if you win the amateur of the year, you'll win a boat and you'll get your tour card. So I'm like, okay, well, next tournament's in Georgia, then it's in Louisiana, then it's in Tennessee, then it's in Texas, and this whole tour. So I said, well, I'll give it a shot. So I finished out the year, won angler of the year. And
how old were you?
I was about 20 years old, I believe, about 20 at the time.
Nice.
And so they said, well, now you have your tour card. What are you going to do? You're going to go on tour? And I'm like, well, let me give that a shot, And in my mind, I was thinking, well, if I get totally killed here right off the gate, I'll probably just, go back to working at the marina and take my time on doing the whole pro thing. But I started my first tournament here in Florida, did pretty good. And the first tournament we went out of the state, $100,000 first place tournament, by the way, ESPN, the whole 9 yards. I'll win the tournament, in Mississippi. So from that point on, my trail was kind of set, and I've been riding that wave ever since. So it's been 25 years of doing this.
Well, you're the perfect person to ask this. Like, what are your problems? Like what are your biggest obstacles in the craft?
Well, I mean, fishing's an art. Fishing's hunting. Fishing is mentally and physically draining. a lot of people laugh when you say fishing's a sport. The people that don't know what fishing's really about. We're not in a rowboat with a 6-pack of beer and a net and a big hat and an anchor. That's not fishing. That's not the kind of fishing we're doing like you see on TV, right?
Right.
The fishing we're doing is, in a bass boat out there, daylight till dark, in every weather condition you can imagine, from sleet, rain, snow, wind, no wind, heat, standing on one leg because we're running the trolling motor with our other foot, making thousands of casts, calculated, by the way, all day long. So there's never a cast that I make that's random. It's never a cast that I make just kind of just wasting time. Every cast I make is a decision that I made in my mind, a split-second decision to fish right there, to fish right there, to fish right there. And I'm calculating every cast. If I don't catch a fish, I'm thinking, I didn't catch one that cast. What adjustment do I need to make? And I give, it's a whole process. And so your mind never stops for those 8 or 10 hours on the water. Physically, your body never stops for those 8 or 10 hours on the water. And to win a tournament, you have to be at 100% on both physical and mental side of that, or you're not going to win. And because you've got to figure out how to catch the 5 biggest ones, not just one day, but 4 days in a row, to be the winner. So it's funny, again, as I've over the years, I've had people say, you just fish for a living, right? That's not that hard. What's hard about that? Right. And I've taken people fishing where, again, we're not anchored up, having a 6-pack of beer, listening to music, casting a bobber out.
Right.
We're standing on one leg, making those thousands of casts, and I'm pushing that angler in the boat with me to keep up with pace. And when we get done fishing, they don't move for 2 days.
Right.
Like, honestly, they're like done. They can't even keep their eyes open. They're physically drained. They're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And so that's the sport, the bass fishing there, summed up, the physical and mental side of things. So that's hard. You got to be in shape. You've got to have stamina. And again, fishing's hunting. And if you hunt, you kind of understand, like, you've got to calculate every single move you make based on what move you think that creature's making. And that fish is a living creature, and it's constantly moving and readjusting its eating, and it's where it's living, where it's hunting, all those different things. You have to be one step ahead. And, that's what makes fishing so challenging. And I think that's really why the sport of bass fishing is by far the number one competitive thing in fishing. There's other people that do tournaments for trout or do a tournament for redfish or snook, but bass is like the most competitive, challenging, grueling, mentally, physically way to sport fish on the planet.
Right. Right. So you had so much, so many reps, and you've been through so many, tournaments, you've seen it all. What are some, crazy moments that you've had in your travel? There's, I want to know the real crazy moments. I want to know the ones where you're talking to the guys that you fish with, in the past, say, yeah, there was that time, but there's got to be 3 or 4 of those. And those are the things I want to bring up.
Yeah. In fishing, there's some pretty amazing things. There's some pretty, the first tournament I won was probably one of the coolest stories, I think. I'll summarize it pretty quick because it's a pretty complex story, but the tournament went out of Pascagoula, Mississippi, which is a river, the Pascagoula River on the southern shores of Mississippi. And our boundaries for the tournament there was no boundaries. Like, in essence, as long as you blasted off in Pascagoula, you could go where you wanted to. You just had to be back by weigh-in time at 3:00. So that was your parameter, was time. And the fishing in the Pascagoula River was not that good. And we were there in February in the South. And February in the South, when there's cold fronts and then warming trends, there's a lot of fog, ocean fog. And again, I'm not real used to fishing a tournament in the ocean, and Pascagoula River's on the coast. And I decided to find fish in Mobile Bay, which was another river next to Pascagoula River, but it was about to where you could get to the fresh water was about a 70-mile run. And most of it was in the ocean or in the southern bay of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And so, I'm in a bass boat, of course, and I take off the first day of the tournament, and I'm fishing over there in Mobile, 70 miles away, and I'm catching them really good. Right there where I-10 goes across Mobile Bay. If you've ever driven on I-10,
I have.
where the top of Mobile, where there's a tunnel you go under. I was bass fishing right around that bridge. Like if you were standing on that bridge, you would have seen me. And again, this was thousands, so 24 years ago, $100,000 tournament. And the first day is going well, dead slick, calm, pretty warm out, been cold. And I go to take off and I give myself the right amount of time to get back under normal conditions. And as I take off and I get out in the middle of Mobile Bay, I realize that the fog bank is a giant fog bank out in the middle of Mobile Bay from that temperature change. And when I say fog bank, I mean like can't see anything.
Wow.
Fog. And as I traverse through the fog, and by the way, this is 24 years ago, so we don't have the fancy GPSs and map systems like we have today.
Right.
We had a GPS, but it was just a bread trail, like an old basic bread trail. And as I navigate through this sea of fog, can't see more than about 30 feet in front of the boat. It's a shipping lane for oil container ships. And on the way over that morning, I did see a few shipping containers or big oil freighters going in and out of the bay, and they were kicking up. I remember seeing a wave behind the thrust of that ship was about 10, 15 foot tall thrust of water shooting out of this giant ship, pushing trillions of gallons of fuel.
Wow.
And I remember seeing those big waves, and I was far enough away from them during the day that I could navigate away from danger. So the fog sets in and I'm driving my boat through there and I can't see. And I've got my amateur partner next to me and he's looking out and he starts screaming right at the last second. He's, he hits me and I'm looking, of course. And all I see is this giant wall in front of me. And I don't know what it is. It looks like land, but I see water splashing and I don't know, but a reaction is just turn to the right. And so as I turn to the right, I'm going down the side of what then I realize is a ship. And then I realize that there's going to be a wave coming and I don't know where and when. And so I'm turning to the right, trying to get away from this ship. And then the guy starts yelling again. And I see the same thing again, repeated, where there's a wall and water shooting everywhere. And now I just naturally turn to the left because that was just kind of my natural reaction. And I don't know what's going on at this point. I'm thinking like I'm attacked and it's super confusing, fog everywhere, water shooting everywhere. And I just keep driving and I'm going like 30 miles an hour. And I'm just waiting for this giant wave to launch me in the air and probably eject me out of the boat. I don't want to stop because I feel like I'm going to get run over. And it passes and no wave hits. And I don't know what's going on. My heart's a million miles an hour. I'm scared to death. Still fog, by the way. And what I realized is two ships were passing.
Wow.
Like this. And I drove in between them. Like I went in front of this one, down the side of this one. And I missed going behind either one of those boats and I didn't get, launched in the air. So I make it back, straight fog the whole way. And I'm so scared. I'm like, there's no way I'm going back over there if there's fog. I mean, I almost died. It's just too dangerous. So the next day, that morning, there was fog. So they're delaying the tournament. And they're delaying the tournament for a while. And I'm doing the math, 70-mile run. I can't go full speed. I need time to get back. If I don't leave by 8 o'clock or by 9 o'clock, I can't make it there and back in time by 3 o'clock. It's just not enough time. So I'd kind of given myself that parameter of 9 o'clock, it's done. I'm going to stay here in the river and just do what I can. And by the way, I'm leading the tournament. And so at 9:10, they start calling boat numbers. I was boat 5 that day. And so I've got a decision to make. Basically, I've already kind of crossed my path in my mind of 9 o'clock. And I get to the mouth of the river. I can go right to the ocean through the fog. It's fog again. Or go left up the river and just fish up the river. And I went to the right again. So then I drove 70 miles in the fog again. And it was just, I didn't hit any ships, of course, but man, it was so scary. I almost got stuck on a sandbar, navigating these little white poles. There was a ship off in the distance. It was a shrimp boat that was stuck on a sandbar. I thought it was deep water. So I go that way and realize there's birds standing in ankle deep water and make it through the first day, make it through the second day. And now the third day and the fourth day, I'll skip to the fourth day of the tournament. I'm leading, ESPN's filming the whole thing, camera crew all around. And the tide goes extremely low that day. There's a tide, and I'm in this backwater area now, and I realize that I'm not going to make it out because the tide's dropped too far down, and there's oyster bars everywhere. So I had to literally get a running start and jump like those mud boats that you see, like on TV, like shooting mud out, like the duck boats. I had to do that with a bass boat.
Wow.
For 100 yards to an oyster bed, and I made it out without the engine blowing up and the prop flying off. And I made it back, 70 more miles, and I won the $100,000 tournament. And it was pretty crazy, the emotions and the whole series of events. It was even more to the story, but it's was quite the ordeal.
Wow. This is a novice question, but how do you, I mean, aren't the fish affected in that area? Was all that, those ships and everything, or like, but you went to an isolated area, but even close to that area, isn't there like fuel discharge and all that in that environment? Doesn't that affect the where the fish populate?
Yeah, it wasn't the best fishing over there. I'm sure it does, but that's a big river that flushes, with the tide every day. So up where I was, it wasn't the best water, but it wasn't like, it's a pretty big system there. But yes, I mean, ships and all that it's not good for the fishery. That's for sure.
Right. Where are you at today?
I didn't catch any blinky 3-eyed bass, but it was enough to win $100,000 tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've read in the bio, you've won quite a bit of, this is not including endorsements and things like that, but 3.5 on just tournaments.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. 3.5 just in tournaments. I won one a few weeks ago, which I'm really proud of. Matter of fact, here's the trophy here. I'll show it to you.
Oh, look at that. That is a grandiose. There it is.
My latest trophy here. This is the one I might be most proud of.
Yeah.
This was just a few weeks back, and the record.
The Bassmaster Open. That's the Super Bowl.
Well, right, this is the Bass Classic, but that's next. That's next. But I haven't won that one. This is important. It's a big deal. That tournament there,
huge.
Was a great event. I set the record for. Very special, really. So in 1991, I stood in a parking lot in our hometown of Clewiston, where I'm at now. And in that parking lot, there was a stage set up at our marina, and it was Bassmasters in 1991. And my dad stood on the stage in 1991, and he held this trophy up as champion. And as a 15-year-old, I sat there and I looked up at that stage of my dad holding this trophy up, and I thought, that's what I want to do one day.
Wow.
That's what I want to do one day. I want to hold that trophy up. And so the neat part of the story, Michael, is that it was in 1991 at 15. 33 years later, 2024, Bassmasters came back to that same parking lot and set up that same stage with that same trophy. And I fished the event, and I stood on that same stage holding that same trophy up 33 years ago with my dad standing on stage with me, congratulating me. Wow. And so that was a full circle moment for me. Kind of a dream come true, full circle.
Right.
And in the meantime, I set the record for the largest weight ever weighed in a 3-day Bassmaster Open tournament. And they've been around for, 50 years. And so that was set the record there for the biggest weights caught ever. So special.
What do you and your dad talk about at the dinner table when you're talking about fishing?
It's funny. My dad and I don't talk about fishing all that much. No real reason. But I've always just kind of done my own thing, and he's kind of always done his. I mean, he's always, just gives me big pats on the back and tells me he's proud of me. And wow, you're really doing good, and you're kicking butt, that kind of stuff. But he never talks strategy. He never talks like, hey, you should try this, or hey, when I used to fish, I did this and that. That's not ever a conversation that we've ever had, to be honest with you. He doesn't call me when I go to these tournaments around the country and say, hey, I fished, which is funny to think, because it's like, you hear chatter from like the haters on the internet, like, oh yeah, your dad showed you everything. Like, okay, my dad's 84 tomorrow. Okay. Like my dad fished a lake in 1969, and you think that whatever he did in 1969 is anywhere relevant
Right.
to now. I mean,
Right.
it's just so silly, like, okay, yeah. He told me where those bass should be probably 40 or 50 pounds by now, right?
Yeah, I want to touch on that because there's a lot of the phrase right now, nepo babies and all that. And you know what? It's usually for Hollywood. I actually think that we should favor actors and people and that grew up with that craft because they grew up with that craft. They were there. They there's nothing like that. There's an ineffable unconscious competence that happens when somebody's been around something their entire life and they want to do that their entire life. And I've seen so many people that go through that. And it's like, well, they were born into that. Good. That means that they're better at it. They had a head start. Good for them. That's the person I want to bet on. That's the, it's like you wouldn't get upset at a plumber. Why would you get upset at somebody in sport or in entertainment? I don't know. That's just my little soapbox. I'm just going to get on that for a second.
That's funny, actually. As people complain, like if my dad was a plumber and I got in the plumbing business, you're going to say, oh, the only plumbing is because your dad told you some plumbing secret, like it is funny. But, over the years for me, and, I've been doing this professionally now for 25 years. My dad's 84, but when I started this career, I wanted to do it my own way. And so I didn't go after, the partnerships that my dad had. I went and did my own partnerships with companies that were completely opposite, people that I believed in and relationships that I kind of built on, and did my own thing. And, he fished the Bassmaster Trail for all those years, which is what this trophy is.
Yeah.
And for the first 20 years of my career, I fished what they call FLW Tour, which is a different tour. So it's kind of like back in the day, they did the NFL and the AFL and the NFL.
Right.
Some of that, there's still some,
because the AFL and the NFL, they merged.
Correct. But there's still another organization out there. So there's a couple tournament organizations out there still today. And I fished the other organization for all those years. And I won a lot of tournaments over there. I did everything I could do. I won Angler of the Year, won the World Championship, won enough tournaments. And so I had accomplished all my goals. And so then that's when I decided that I wanted to change and go over to the Bassmaster Tour. But the reason I fished the FLW back in the day was really to do my own thing.
Right.
Not to just, I didn't ever want anybody to say, oh, you're doing that because your dad, or I did my own thing. So anyways.
No one's catching those fish for you.
Yeah, exactly. 25 years later, I've done my own thing for all these years. And so I'm proud of it, and I've done it my way. And it's been a blessing, man. It's not easy. Tournament fishing is probably one sport out there that probably has the lowest winning percentage. Yeah. If you think about it, like, let's talk about basketball. If you're a professional basketball player, you play hundreds of games a year and you win, 60% of them. If you're a football player, you play 10 or 12 or 15 games a year, you win 6, 8, 10, 12 games a year. As a golfer, you probably, top level golfer, you might win a couple tournaments a year. But in fishing, I've been doing it 25 years and I've won 9 big tour events. And that's a lot of it. That's a lot. I mean, that's up there with the most, higher end of what people have won. Mm-hmm. And but that's the way fishing is. So there's a lot of not good tournaments. I won this one, and I came in third in the one last week in South Carolina. Had a chance to win that one, but the one before that I didn't do all that great, and the one before that I did terrible. So it's you got to take it all in stride. It's not like again, like basketball where I've got my shot really down and I'm a great free thrower and I'm just going to shoot your lights out.
Let's talk about your kids. You got your son and daughter are both during tournaments right now.
No, just my daughter, Hillary. Okay. She's 18. She's on the fishing team at the University of Alabama. Wow. Her name is Hillary, and on Instagram, she's a real Hillary Sue, and she's following in my footsteps, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool, actually, very cool. She's doing great. We're very proud of her.
What do you talk about at the dinner table with her?
I talk normal stuff, and I definitely give her advice on things. And I'm it's different. It's different in today's world. Again, when I did it, I wanted to be opposite of my dad. But in today's world with media and the way that we can be stronger together with continuity, we've aligned. Her and I are more aligned than my dad and I were. And it makes better sense in 2024 to do things like that. But her and I talk a lot about, strategies, and she's still learning here in Florida. When you grow up in Florida fishing, you don't necessarily learn all the techniques that you would if you lived in Alabama or Texas, where you have different types of lakes and different types of fishing, from shallow to deep to rivers and streams to lakes and ponds. Here in Florida, it's all kind of the same kind of fishing, right. Shallow, grassy Florida lakes. So yes. I'm always having to encourage her and kind of teach her new techniques and talk about things. And she picks it up like that. And so, I was her captain on high school fishing for a couple years. And so I got to sit there and be her coach. And man, I tell you, every time I told her, hey, because you should try jerkbait, she would put a jerkbait on and start just catching the mess out of them. She's really good. She's really good. Fish like her. That's what I always say. Fish like her a lot.
Where you at right now? What's going on? The career this week, this month, what's happening with you topically right now?
We are here now. We're shooting some TV stuff that we've got going on. And then off to the Bassmasters Classic next week in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then off to the next tournament, which would be about 3 weeks from now. So we got a little bit of a break. So we're shooting a few shows, getting a few things done right now.
Long-term plans, 5, 10, 15-year plan. What do you got?
We're not retired. Retire. I'm going to probably fish.
Well, why retire? No, because of what you told me. I mean, you want one leg to be, relaxed at the same level.
That's right. I look like Popeye right now in my legs. That's for sure. I don't know. I mean, I've got some goals still to achieve.
Yeah.
I feel good. I'm in good shape mentally and physically, and there's no reason to slow down anytime soon. But we're always trying to stay one step ahead with all of our social media and our YouTube and our TV stuff with ESPN, and
right.
We stay busy with all that. And I like the production side of things, and I enjoy doing that, and it's been fun. We've had the TV stuff going on for almost 20 years now, and it's been neat. So I do it all myself. I have my own production company and marketing team, and we go out and purchase all the airtime for the networks and negotiate everything. And it's fun. I enjoy that side of things. So it's always good to when I'm not in a tournament, I'm filming. When I'm not filming, I'm doing social. When I'm not doing social, I'm getting ready to do something. I mean, it's always something. And that's one reason I don't hunt. I like to hunt, but I don't love to hunt. I don't have the time.
Right.
So I pretty much fish. We have a saltwater, we have some stuff that we do saltwater wise as well. So I'm, spend a lot of time offshore doing some things as well.
All right. You're the person to ask this, man, because you've done the whole thing 360. So, because I always ask this, 5 top things that somebody needs to know to become a great pro bass fisherman.
Yeah. So you need to, number one, you need to understand marketing. Okay. Because it's not in today's world, it's not how many fish you can catch. It's how great you can represent the industry and the products you represent, and be a face and help companies sell products that you believe in, right? There's a lot of companies out there that make a lot of great products. And at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you can put yourself in a position to represent the products that you believe in. That's number one. Number two, you need to be versatile in today's world of fishing. Back 20 years ago, you didn't have to know a whole lot. You just needed to be really good at one or two things, and you could survive. In today's fishing, that's not the case anymore. You have to be very, very versatile. Number three, you need to take advantage of all social media aspects. The industry and the sponsors and the fans, they don't have a way to connect to you. They're not necessarily watching, TV or reading magazines like they used to back 20 years ago. So if you're not on social media, you're not on the internet, you're not making a name for yourself. And so that's important. And then I would say the other thing is, keep a good image. Keep a good image. We're not a bunch of drunk rock stars out here on the road. You got to keep a good image, and provide an opportunity for a lot of demographics. And the last thing is you just got to be mentally and physically strong, so you can be prepared to win. You gotta really focus on winning. You got to believe it to achieve it. If you're sitting out here if you're out here trying to do the fishing gig because you don't like to work a 9 to 5, that's the wrong reasons. I know guys that way. Oh man, I left my office job. Now I'm a professional fisherman, and really they're just out here because they're like, dude, this is so much better than sitting at home in a cubicle or digging a ditch or whatever, being a plumber. This is just way. So they're out there really not to win. They're just out there to not do what they used to do. Wow. And if you're out there for that reason, you're just going to go through the process, endlessly go through the process, and you might not ever win a tournament. And if you do, you're not going to really know why you won it, and you probably won't win another one. So you have to mentally prepare yourself to win, and you got to focus on winning, because fishing is hunting. And if you're really paying attention to every little thing out there, from the environment to the sounds on the water, to the temperature, to all the things, and you're calculating that 24/7, you're going to make good decisions on the water. You're going to catch more fish, and you catch bigger fish.
Applicable to every business and sport, really.
Yeah.
All 5 of those. Outstanding. I feel like we we hit pay dirt with you today. I feel like I really got to the epicenter of pro bass fishing with you today. So I appreciate that. Scott Martin, tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
Yeah, pretty simple. Scott Martin Challenge is our brand that we have with the TV shows, of course, and all of our Instagram and Facebook. All the TikToks and all that. So Scott Martin Challenge across the board. And that's what we do. So join us on YouTube as well. We film a lot of our reality content. It's on YouTube. So we're putting up a few episodes a week, so they can tap into the world and the behind the scenes world of what all the things I just talked about. Because we film daylight till dark on the road, and we capture the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs. And it's pretty cool stuff. If anybody's ever watching this and goes, I really want to know more about this bass fishing thing, just jump over on our YouTube channel, watch some of the tournament content that we have, and you'll get a really good understanding of what goes on.
Yeah. And you're the guy to do it too, for knowing where you came from and knowing, what your the lineage that you're leaving. Yeah, you're the guy. So absolute great stories. Thank you so much. I will, the next time I'm on a boat and I'm going through fog, I will never think of it the same way again. Thank you so much for sharing.
It is scary. It is scary. So I appreciate you having me on, man. And look forward to seeing this popping up here real soon. And if you ever want to tell some more stories, give me a call.
Will do. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to Bolotor.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.